Hi everyone, and welcome back to another review of a Socket A motherboard. Today we're going to be looking at the Abit AN7 and we're going to start with the BIOS. The first page offers the possibility of setting the CPU, the AGP and the FSB and also RAM frequency. The second page is pretty standard, loops through the hard drives. This one offers a bit more options, but nothing interesting. And the last two options are the one that interests us more because they provide some performance gains. Also, setting of the RAM timings is can be found in that page. I'm also going to go about disabling some options for devices that are not useful in the benchmarking process. Checking the voltages from the power supply unit. And we're going to save and exit the BIOS. The CD offers the drivers, the manual, some utility applications, and some specific applications for the motherboard. The uGuru application is a monitoring and overclocking solution by Abit for doing so in the Windows operating system. And here's the contents of the CD. Next, we're gonna look at some benchmarks for CPU and memory. And we're gonna start with superPI, and we're gonna do the 1 megabyte test. The time it takes to complete, it's about the same as the NF7 SV2. And here are the timings on the RAM. And here's the video card. Next, we're going to look at the Abit equalizer and the uGuru utility. This one allows for overclocking on the fly, straight from Windows. Although I don't recommend this type of program, we're gonna give it a try. we're not gonna go as far as the overclock with the NF7 because we're doing this in Windows firsthand, and the motherboard itself seems a bit more worn out than the Abit AN7S. And we're gonna do the 1 megabyte test again. And we're gonna try restoring everything back to normal, to the default frequencies. We're gonna start with the regular CPU, memory, and hard drive tests, like the PCMark. Next, we're gonna look at Sandra. Following the arithmetic and multimedia benchmark. And also the memory bandwidth benchmark. Next, we're gonna look at the CPU bench. And here are the results compared with Pentium 4 and some other AMD CPUs. And here are the rest of the tests performed by CPU bench. Next is Cinebench 2003. And you can see the results in the bottom left window. Next, we're gonna look at the CPU cache test. And now we're gonna have a look at ScienceMark. And here's the conclusion. The score is a bit disappointing compared to the 10,000 points the NF7 got, but we're gonna come back to this a bit later. And we're gonna continue with Aquamark 3. Next, we're gonna look at the Comanche4 and Unreal Tournament 2003 benchmarks. Next, we're gonna look at some OpenGL tests, and we're gonna start with Village. Unfortunately, I didn't have enough patience to finish this test, or it was the first time running it, and I stopped it when passing the same house 3 times in a row. Next is TreeBenchmark. And actually this benchmark provided me with a hint of a potential problem the graphic card was having. So as you can see, the frame rate is almost 60. And I started suspecting some form of vertical synchronization. And we're going to continue with a few more OpenGL benchmarks. Upon reaching this test, I was pretty sure that a form of vertical synchronization was active, and I decided to install the 6693 driver. This is why I decided to come back to 3DMark 2001 and got a score pretty similar to the one from the NF7S. As you can see, this was the issue for me, but checking the other scores from Aquamark, Comanche4 and Unreal Tournament, made me think that the AN7 had a hardware issue. Fortunately, it was just a driver issue, and with the driver 6693, I was able to force the vertical synchronization off and got the score you see on the screen. And we're going to continue with a few lesser known benchmarks. The Mercedes-Benz truck racing benchmark has an issue on my computer or with the driver. So if anyone knows the solution to this problem, please feel free to leave a comment. And next we're gonna look at some game benchmarks where the game have a predefined demo and they follow along with some specific video settings. And we're gonna start with FarCry and follow with Return to Castle Wolfenstein. Next we're gonna look at some actual games, and we're gonna start with Battlefield 1942. The next game on our list is the 3D real-time strategy Emperor Battle Fortune, produced by Westwood Studios. Next, we're gonna look at GTA Vice City, and it looks like I didn't get rid of all the vertical synchronization issues. As you can see, it's stuck at 30 FPS, and fortunately it's no driver issue, but it's actually a frame limiter from the games option. And the last game we're gonna look at today is Medal of Honor Allied Assault. In conclusion, the AN7 is an identical twin of the NF7. The BIOS for this board offers a greater flexibility when overclocking, offering wider ranges of voltages and finer granularity. I felt that the overclocking process was easier on the NF7, with the board being stable across higher voltages and frequencies. The AN7 was probably used more than the NF7, and it's showing its age. With this board, I like the angled IDE connectors, the extra USB, and the ditching of the serial connector. Despite the features I just mentioned and extended BIOS options, it's really hard to recommend the AN7 over the NF7S. The NF7S, although yielding similar results on the stock settings, feels more versatile and easier to overclock. Also, the tools provided by the AN7 for overclocking from the Windows operating system feel a bit unpolished. In conclusion, if you stumble upon an AN7, it's worth getting one. But if you want to overclock a socket A CPU, you better go with the NF7S. Thank you and see you next time.